All right, we're back. Still in Act 4, Scene 3. Enter a doctor. Well, more anon. Malcolm says this to Macduff, meaning we'll talk about this more soon. Comes the king forth, I pray you. Really, Tank? Aye, sir. There are a crew of wretched souls that stay his cure. Their malady convinces the great assay of art, but at his touch, such sanctity hath heaven given his hand, they presently amend. I thank you, doctor. The doctor exits. This is out of nowhere. What's going on? Well, the doctor apparently says that there's a crew of wretched souls that stay his cure. There's a bunch of sick people here in England, like a plague, and that their malady convinces the great assay of art. Their malady is their sickness, and that means that it conquers the ability of medical science. Science cannot help them. Medicine cannot help them. But one thing can help them. At his touch, the king's touch, the king of England's touch, they presently amend. The king touches them and they heal. Magic. How does he have this? Well, it says, such sanctity hath heaven given his hand. The doctor exits. What's the disease he means? 'Tis called the evil. Which I just think is hilarious that they call this disease the evil. A most miraculous work in this good king, which often since my here remain in England I have seen him do. How he solicits heaven himself best knows, but strangely visited people, all swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery, he cures, hanging a golden stamp about their necks, put on with holy prayers. And, 'tis spoken, to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. In other words, what? The king, somehow, Malcolm says, I've seen it happen here in England ever since I've been here, that he has all these people who are swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye. It sounds like they might be lepers. I don't know. They're really sick people come, and he does this stuff and touches them, and boom, they heal. And it is spoken that to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. This part's kind of random. What's important about this? Well, I think Shakespeare's sucking up to his king, if I'm honest with you. Because to the succeeding royalty, he leaves the healing benediction. Remember that in Shakespeare's time, everyone went to the play. The poor, the merchant class, the nobles, and the king. So the king saw this play, likely. And when the king saw this play, here's this line that suggests that the succeeding royalty, remember this is the king of England they're talking about, would also have this healing benediction. The succeeding royalty would include King James, Shakespeare's king. So in other words, he just said, I think that you can almost hear the actor saying, and to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. With this strange virtue he hath a heavenly gift of prophecy, and sundry blessings hang about his throne that speak him full of grace. And also prophecy, yes. So I can see King James sitting back saying, yes, I could just heal people with my touch if I wanted to. And I knew he was going to say that because I'm prophetic. Enter Ross. And if you remember anything from earlier in this class, what does Ross tend to do? What's his role in this play? He often brings news. And when he brings news, it's usually bad news. Macduff says, see who comes here. My countryman, yet I know him not. Malcolm doesn't recognize him. My ever-gentle cousin, welcome hither. I know him now. Malcolm says, oh, well, if Macduff knows him, then I know him, sure. Good God, betimes remove the means that make us strangers. Sir, amen. Stand Scotland where it did. Alas, poor country, almost afraid to know itself. It cannot be called our mother, but our grave, where nothing but who knows nothing is once seen to smile. So how are things going in Scotland? Not well. Only someone who knows nothing would ever be seen to smile, because everyone else knows this is not a time for smiles. Where sighs and groans and shrieks that rent the air are made, not marked. Where violent sorrow seems a modern ecstasy. The dead man's knell is there scarce asked for who, and good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps, dying or ere they sicken. So the cap a man would wear with a flower in his cap, the flower lives longer than the man does. That's how things are going in Scotland. People are dying. It's a horrible place. And Macduff says, oh, relation too nice and yet too true. By too nice, he means That was really nicely said. Good summary there, but it's also too true, so it's not a nice thing. What's the newest grief? That of an hour's age doth hiss the speaker. Each minute teems with a new one. In other words, he doesn't feel like he could say what the newest grief is because every hour there's a new grief. How does my wife? Oh, good question, Macduff. Why, well, Ross says. And all my children? Well, too. The tyrant has not battered at their peace? No, they were well at peace when I did leave them. What? Ross? Come on. Ross, his job is to tell the bad news, and he just kind of didn't do it. Instead, he equivocated, right? He told the truth, but in a misleading way. He says, well, they are well at peace when I did leave them. Yeah, resting in peace. Macduff says, be not a niggard of your speech. How goes it? Now, I want to point out that that word right there is not the N-word, and it's not related to the N-word. The word here actually means miser, and usually productions would replace it with the word miser nowadays, because otherwise it just is so off-putting to the audience, or it can be confusing to the audience, and there's no need to connect those two. The word truly just means a miser, and a miser is one who's stingy. So he's telling him, be not a miser of your speech. Don't be stingy with your speech. Let us have all the, give out all your words. Don't hold back. Ross says, when I came hither to transport the tidings which I have heavily borne, there ran a rumor of many worthy fellows that were out, which was, to my belief, witnessed the rather for that I saw the tyrant's power afoot. Now is the time of help. Your eye in Scotland would create soldiers, make our women fight to doff their dire distresses. In other words, he's heard a rumor that there are many worthy fellows who are out. Worthy fellows would be ones ready to fight against Macbeth. And then he says he thinks that rumor is true, and that you, coming to Scotland, Malcolm, would create soldiers. You would have people rising up to help fight with you. Be it their comfort, we are coming thither. Gracious England hath lent us good Seward and 10,000 men. An older and a better soldier, none that Christendom gives out. Would I could answer this comfort with the like. In other words, I wish I could answer this comforting news with more comforting news. But I am Ross. I do not bring comforting news. But I have words that would be howled out in the desert air, where hearing should not latch them. What concern they? Macduff says. The general cause, or is it a fee grief due to some single breast? In other words, is it something that would be really distressing for everyone? Is it generally bad news, or is it bad news for one specific person? Just like one guy who really doesn't want to hear it. No mind that's honest, but in it shares some woe, though the main part pertains to you alone. If it be mine, keep it not from me. Quickly, let me have it. Let not your ears despise my tongue forever, which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet they have heard. Hum, I guess at it. Your castle is surprised, your wife and babes savagely slaughtered. To relate the manner, we're on a quarry of these murdered deer to add the death of you. Merciful heaven. Okay, so Ross finally does let it out. He shows up. Macduff asks, how's my family? And Ross doesn't have the courage to tell him at that point. He just says, yeah, they're doing well. And then, a minute later says, they were savagely slaughtered. He doesn't use any euphemisms there to soften it either. He really tells them. Macduff is shocked. And Malcolm says to him, what, man? Never pull your hat upon your brows. Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers the overfraught heart and bids it break. My children too? Wife, children, servants, all that could be found. And I must be from thence. My wife killed too? I have said. Be comforted. Let's make us manly medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief. So Malcolm's like, hey, let's go ahead and get some revenge, and that'll be the medicine for your grief that you have right now. He has no children. A key line here, Macduff not only confirms that Macbeth doesn't have any children, but points out that he can't have revenge on Macbeth. He can't make Macbeth feel this because Macbeth doesn't have children. In other words, Macduff says, if he had children, I could go kill them, and then that would be revenge, but there's no such thing. All my pretty ones? Did you say all? Oh, hellkite, all? What, all my pretty chickens and their dam at one fell swoop? Dispute it like a man. I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. This is a great line again. Malcolm's telling him to man up, to go ahead and be a man and go fight back. And Macduff says, yes, but I have to feel it as a man. He redefines manhood here and says that there's something manly about feeling this moment. I cannot but remember such things were that were most precious to me. Did heaven look on and would not take their part? Sinful Macduff, they were all struck for thee. Not that I am, not for their own demerits, but for mine, fell slaughter on their souls. Heaven rest them now. And Macduff's going through a mix of emotions. Well, first he wonders, why didn't heaven stop this? Why does something horrible happen like this? Why doesn't God or heaven come down and prevent this from happening? And then he starts to blame himself, that they were struck down for thee, Macduff. Be this the whetstone of your sword. Let grief convert to anger. Blunt not the heart, enrage it. Malcolm points out that the whetstone is where you sharpen your sword. He says, let this be that on which you sharpen your sword. Turn your grief into anger. Oh, I could play the woman with mine eyes and braggart with mine tongue. But gentle heavens cut short all intermission. Front to front bring thou this fiend of Scotland and myself. Within my sword's length set him. If he escape, heaven forgive him too. When he says he could play the woman with his eyes, he's saying I could sit here and cry. Or I could be the braggart with my tongue. I could talk about how much I'm going to kill him. I could do that. But instead, he asks the heavens to cut short all intermission. That time in between now and when he faces Macbeth. He doesn't want any of that time to exist. Okay? He says, front to front, bring thou this fiend of Scotland and myself. That's all he asks, is put me in front of Macbeth. And then he says, if he escape, heaven forgive him too. In other words, if he can get away, heaven can forgive him. That's fine with me. I think it's a hint that he doesn't think he's going to get away. Malcolm says, this tune goes manly. Come, go we to the king. Our power is ready. Our lack is nothing but our leave. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. The night is long that never finds the day. Dum, 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 dum. They exit. This tune goes manly. He's pointing out that now you're talking like a man here, Macduff. You're talking about going back and killing Macbeth. That's Act 4, Scene 3. We'll see you next week for Act 5.